Okay, good evening, early evening, ladies and gentlemen, councillors, officers, and anyone in the gallery here or at home to this meeting of the Planning Committee. It is early today because we have a lot of Midlandhurst stuff to look at, but I think we've also caught up in the traffic. We are quorate, so I suggest we just press on. I will change the order of the agenda, and I'll get to that when we come to it. Item 1, apologies for absence. I've heard from Councillor Omani, he's on his way from Slough. It says he'll get here sometime today. Do we have any other apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Wilson. He's meant to be subbed for by Councillor Young-Perrott.
Thank you. She's probably coming in with Liz. Okay, minutes of the previous meeting, these have been circulated. Does anyone have any comments on those? No? Excellent, thank you. I will sign them. That's it. Item 3, declarations of interest. I don't know about any of you, but I've had emails and phone calls regarding number 7. Yes, okay. Anybody else had any declarations of interest, pecuniary or not? Councillor Garrett?
I thought I'd annotated them on this, but obviously not coming up. There's 3 I've had received emails on, and I cannot for life remember which, but I will highlight them as we come to them.
Thank you. Councillor Whitcroft?
Thank you, Chair. All 3 deep cut applications, I've received emails and in a couple of occasions phone calls as well. Thank you.
Okay. With regard to the agenda, I'm going to change it round slightly because we've got 3 large ones. If we get the others off earlier, then the officers that can go home and we'll still be here in the morning. So I'm going to take it in order of number 4, number 9, number 8, then 5, 6, 7. Okay? So item 4, TPO confirmation. And there is a supplementary paper for this laid before you, I think.
Thank you very much, Chair. Hopefully you can all hear me loud and clear. Please let me know if you can't. If I could have the next slide, please, Sarita. TPO 0224 relates to the making of a woodland TPO on land to the rear of Leslie Road and Windsor Road, shown in red on the map on the left. The woodland category's purpose is to safeguard a woodland as a whole, so it follows that while some trees within the woodland may lack individual merit, all trees within a woodland are protected due to the importance of the woodland group. In addition, trees and saplings which grow naturally or are planted within the woodland area after the order is made are also protected by the order. The reason the woodland preservation order has been served is that there has been a progressive loss of trees across the site for a period of time, which has reduced the overall sylvan character of the woodland, and the reduction of the trees from the site is changing the site's character. If I could have the next slide, please, although I can't see it on my Teams at the moment. Thank you very much. I would like to make the committee aware that there is an existing area TPO from 1976 covering part of the site. This is outlined in blue on the map. A 1976 area TPO does not currently protect the younger trees within the woodland. Therefore, it is appropriate to update the order to a woodland one reflective of the land use within the area. If I could have the next slide, please. This is a couple of images which just show a typical section of the woodland. It is predominantly broadleaf with some mature coniferous species throughout. Woodlands provide a significant sylvan amenity to the area, as well as an important wildlife corridor, and its slow erosion and loss will undoubtedly harm the overall amenity to the village of Chobham. The TPO has come before committee as 2 objections have been received. To summarise on the details contained within Appendix 3, the objections raise the issue of amenity, the fact that the Forestry Commission was not consulted, and that areas without trees should not be covered by the Woodland TPO. The officer's response is summarised as follows. The amenity of the trees is considered to be acceptable to justify the making of the TPO. The trees are visible from Leslie Road, Windsor Road and the Grange. There is also a small public footpath from Seeney's Corner to the Cooperative Food Store in the southeast corner of the site. With regards to the Forestry Commission, the LPA has not consulted them, as there may be an exemption in place to carry out work should the Forestry Commission have an interest in the land. It should also be noted that if a felling licence is granted by the Forestry Commission, then this would override the TPO. If a felling licence were to come through, the LPA would be consulted in the first place prior to the issuing of that licence. If I could have the next slide, please. The objection made reference to some areas that were covered by the woodland order that have no trees on. The map here has highlighted 2 areas in red which are devoid of trees. Next slide, please. And these 2 pictures demonstrate what those 2 fields look like. Given the points raised within the objection that the areas without trees should not be included within the TPO, the officer's recommendation is that the TPO be confirmed with modifications. The modifications would be to remove the 2 fields highlighted in red on the previous slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the officers? Councillor Gowett, then Councillor Quinn.
The wrong way round. Did you say that the number of trees had reduced recently? And I wondered why they had reduced.
I think there's just been some general sort of tree removal. There's not been anything that's been what I would consider to be major tree loss, not great swathes of tree removal. I think that there's been, from the original sort of, let's say, reports that came through to us, that there were some tree works going on. And having been to site, you can see that there are some stumps down there. And as I say, it's not been massive tree loss, but there is just a general progression of loss within the area.
So who's been cutting down the trees? People that own the land, or?
That's correct. Yes, it's the landowner.
Councillor Quinn.
Hi, just a rather obvious question. Just to check that the modifications proposed that don't contain any trees. There's no trees in those 2 fields that we're talking about removing from the TPO. So the modification does not affect any trees. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The objection highlighted that if trees were then subsequently planted or self-set and grown, they would automatically be covered by the TPO. Now, those 2 fields are obviously being maintained. The grass is being cut, although not regularly, and so it would be unreasonable for them to continue that sort of maintenance. And if a tree were to grow up, they'd have to start cutting around the tree. So that's why the 2 fields are being removed.
Councillor Garrett.
I'm pressing that one. Thank you. 2 things. Just picking up on your question, your point about the felling licence. So who issues the felling licence? Because I've got the impression it wasn't us. And if it's not us, I'm assuming they have to bear in mind that there is a TPO. That's question number 1. And second question is, you've alluded to the fact that some trees have already disappeared, as if by magic. Will we be keeping a record of what trees are there now and keeping a check on it to make sure that no more disappear?
So it's the Forestry Commission that issue the felling licence. And prior to them issuing that licence, they will consult with the local authority, who will then basically pass on their response. I think the important aspect of that is that where a felling license is granted, generally speaking, that will then follow a tree replacement program. Felling licenses aren't often granted to clear fell a site without any form of mitigation. So that's hopefully answers question one. In terms of question two, if trees, so the woodland order doesn't specify individual trees. It's a blanket order that covers a large area. The only way the council has a record of trees being removed from that site will either be through a tree works application, which if granted then, so for instance, if someone wants to remove some trees and consent is granted, we will have a record of what they were looking to remove. And similarly, if they issue, if they give the council what they call a dead and dangerous notification, that will also be on record, and that's a 5-day exemption, which basically gives consent within 5 days by the local authority for someone to remove a dead or dangerous tree. So that's the way we would track what would be pruned or removed in that area.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else got any questions? No? Okay, we have an officer recommendation to approve. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Quinn, a seconder. Councillor White.
Sorry, Chair, I think Councillor Tedder is raising a hand. Sorry.
Can't see her.
It's in the corner.
Oh.
Having difficulty raising my hand, I've been pressing the button.
Do you have a question? Pat?
An observation, Mr. Chairman. The reason there, I believe, there's no trees in those fields was that last year or the year before, Surrey Heath Borough Council agreed that a vast number of trees could be removed. And I believe there was a correct order to do so. And then following the removal of those trees, the woodland order was placed, and I believe it was placed not in the right order or something, which is why it's come before you again. So the removal of the trees was on the authority of the Surrey Heath Borough Council, and the very large tree that was removed, the beautiful oak on the Windsor Road, I'm not sure that the residents from those two properties actually got any permission to remove it because it didn't have a TPO on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that's a bit of the history.
I'm not, just so you guys are aware, I'm not familiar with any previous tree works application being made on the site to clear those trees. That would be something I could look into afterwards, because we should have a record of that on the council's website, and also the reasons why they were removed would be on there also.
Okay, thank you. Nomination from Councillor Quinn, seconded by Councillor White. All those in favour, please raise your hands, except those who came late.
I think that's unanimous, Chair.
No one against? Just to check. No abstentions? No, yeah, thank you. Okay, now moving to the end of the list, item 9. This is an application that has been before us before, very recently, and has changed very slightly. Neville.
Thank you, Chair. This application relates to Watchmore Park on Watchmore Road, Camberley. The proposal seeks a variation to application reference 231100, which was for a hybrid planning application, part outline, part full planning application, for the demolition of the existing office buildings and construction of up to 29,358 square metres of flexible EG, III, and B2, B8 use classes, together with associated landscaping, parking. This was granted on the 14th of June 2024, having been reported to the Planning Committee on the 25th of April 2024. This proposal specifically seeks variation to conditions 2, the plan drawings, and condition 26, the EV charging point requirements. Following the grant of permission, it has been noted that there was a minor discrepancy with the red line boundary, which included an area outside of the applicant's ownership. The amendment to conditions 2 seeks to update the approved plans to be consistent with the ownership of the applicant. This alteration has no material impact on the approved development, with no change to the siting of the building, landscaping, or any other matter. The approved development was proposed to provide a total of 50 active EV charging points for Unit 1, in excess of Surrey County Council highway requirements. The proposal seeks to reduce the overall number of charging points to 41, with 21 of these points being active points and 20 being passive points. For clarity, active charging points are those fully wired and connected, ready for use with the above-ground charging facility installed, whilst passive points are when the necessary underlying cabling and infrastructure has been installed, but are not activated and are without the above-ground charging facility put in place. These passive points can be easily upgraded and activated where necessary. The proposed provision accords with Surrey County Council highway guidance, which seeks to provide 20% of all available spaces to be fitted with active sockets and 20% to be installed as passive points. The County Highway Authority has been consulted and raised no objections. The condition wording would be amended to reflect the 20% active and 20% passive provision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seems fairly clear. Anybody have any questions? No. We have an officer recommendation to approve these changes. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Oh, yes. Thank you. Are you following? Councillor Glowert, seconded. Item number 8 on the agenda, SGS House, London Road, Camberley.
Thank you, Chair. So the proposal seeks planning permission for proposed extension and alterations to the atrium to form a new featured gable and additional story to the existing building to form 10 apartments with associated amenities, parking, bin store, and external alterations to the building's materials and replacement windows. There are 2 updates that aren't on your list. An error was noticed on condition 9, meant to say ventilation rather than ventilator, and an informative will be attached should planning permission be granted, advising the applicant that the proposal is still liable. So the application site is located on the southern side of the London Road on the A30. The site sits on the corner of London Road and Lower Charles Street. The existing building is a purpose-built office building. On the opposite side of the road, to the west, is the Grade 2 listed church, and to the north is the main entrance to Sandhurst Royal Military Academy. So if we go through the site photos here, so these are views on the edge of London Road. And then this is from Lower Charles Street, and then on the opposite side you've got the Grade 2 listed church. And then these are views from the south of the site. So in the corner of the left-hand picture is the edge of the atrium shopping centre with the flats to the side. So in terms of the planning history, the site benefits from prior approval for the conversion of part of the building to provide 24 flats Following this decision, the prior approval legislation was altered to remove the floor space limit that can be converted under Class MA. As such, the additional prior approval was submitted and granted to convert the remaining floor space to result in additional 6 flats. Therefore, the site has permission through prior approval to convert the existing building into 30 flats. As such, as part of this application, members can only consider the additional 10 units that are being proposed and the external alterations to the building. So here's the existing elevation. So this is the site on the right-hand side and the neighbouring building on the left. And then this is the side on Lower Charles Street, opposite the listed church. And then these are the proposed elevations. So the additional space is within the roof, which is where some of the additional units are being proposed. And then this is the side elevation that faces the listed church. And then this is the rear elevation. And then this is the side that faces an existing office building that's being converted to residential. So here are the floor plans. So the red and yellow show the prior approval spaces that have been converted, and then the green is the proposal. So on the ground floor, it's the atrium entrance and the parking spaces. And then again, the same on the first, second and third floor, there are additional units within the atrium. And then this is the fourth floor, which is the additional 5th storey, which has the further additional flats within the space. So in summary, whilst there would be a loss of the office use, the building has been vacant since 2021. Furthermore, the government encourages the change of use of buildings for residential purposes, as highlighted by the prior approval on the site, which has already established the principle of the conversion of the building. Therefore, no objection is raised to the residential use. The proposal was submitted with a viability assessment and has been reviewed by our independent consultant. In their opinion, the scheme is marginal and unlikely to support a contribution to affordable housing, as there is no surplus. As such, as a result of this, no affordable housing can be provided as part of this development. In terms of the design, due to the location of the site, it is in a prominent corner location. The resulting building would have a 5-storey residential development. The 4th floor of accommodation is within the roof space created by the proposed extension. The increase in height and massing is considered acceptable and supported by the urban design officer. In terms of the impact on the heritage assets, the heritage officer has reviewed the application and considers the increase in height to 5 storeys would not be overbearing when compared to the height of the Grade 2 listed church. In terms of impact to neighbours, due to the town centre location, the existing relationship with the surrounding buildings in terms of their height and lawful uses, it's considered that the additional fenestration and height would not result in adverse harm to the amenities of the neighbouring occupiers in terms of overlooking or loss of privacy. The proposed units would meet the nationally described space standards, and each new flat would be provided with a balcony. No objection is raised to the impact on neighbouring properties or future occupiers. In terms of highways, the proposal would provide 7 spaces for the 10 apartments. The proposal provides a residential parking spaces at a ratio of 0.77 spaces per dwelling. The Surrey County Council Vehicular and Cycle Parking Guidance states that the recommended provision is for 1 space per unit, whilst it accepted that the car parking provision is under the guidance by 0.3 spaces. The site sits within a sustainable location within walking distance of public transport and local services. Further, Surrey County Council have raised no objection to the parking. Due to the limited SAN capacity available in this part of the borough, the applicant is seeking to secure their SAN contribution through a private SAN. These details will be secured through a legal agreement. No objection is raised for flooding or ecology. The application is therefore recommended for approval subject to conditions in a legal agreement.
Thank you. Members. Councillor Quinn.
Thank you, Chair. Well, firstly, this is an application in my ward, which is St Michael's, and I know it's there's a desperate housing shortage in the ward, and on that basis, I thought when I initially looked at this application that I would be supporting it this evening. However, I have some concerns, especially with the officer's report, which in a section appears to be quite contradictory, and this is 7.4.5 and 7.4.6. Which talking about the viability assessment for affordable housing as a result of this development. Now, if you look at 7.4.5, it says for the proposed 10 units, the applicant has submitted a viability assessment, which the council's independently reviewed. And the consultant agreed with the developer that there would be a small deficit and therefore it's not viable to provide affordable housing. However, while there was a small deficit shown in the viability report, the development would still make a profit of 15.7%, which would be in the acceptable profit margins set out in planning guidance, even if affordable housing was delivered. More importantly, the assessment submitted by the developer, and this is stated in the report, was based on the alternative use value, and the council's viability consultants apparently reviewed only this approach. Now, the alternative use value is not the correct way of assessing viability for affordable housing in the first instance. So it's the case that the applicant, the developer, did not appear to submit the correct viability assessment. If you go on to read 7.4.6, it says the guidance requires that viability assessments must first consider the existing use value before considering the AUV, but the developer, the applicant, did not provide a viability assessment based on the EUV value. It's only afterwards, after they've delivered the report and the council's viability consultant has looked at it, that further inquiries were made in relation to the EUV. Apparently then, almost in contradictory to 7.4.5, which shows that the developer would still make a profit, albeit going down from 17.5% to 15.7%, 7.4.6 then seems to contradict that by saying even with the EUV, it would still be unviable to provide any affordable housing. In light of the confusion between 7.4.5, 7.4.6, and the fact that the applicant and developer seem to have failed to provide an appropriate viability assessment for affordable housing, I will ask members to consider deferring this application if officers' answers aren't clear, so we can get a clearer justification on why no affordable housing can be delivered for this development, despite the acceptable profit margins as outlined in the officer's report.
Lovely. So just obviously to provide clarification, so you are correct that in the first instant, that we would ask for the EUV to be provided within the viability assessment, hence why when the viability consultant, when we got the comments back from the viability consultant, we then went back and asked if they could also consider the AUV. So they went away and looked at that and came back with the same response, that it still wouldn't be viable for them to provide the affordable housing. So we're satisfied that we have assessed it under both requirements.
Chair, if I could just come back to that. How was the council's viability consultant able to look at the EUV when the assessment submitted by the developer was only based on the AUV? And why then does 7.4.5 say the council's viability consultants reviewed only this approach at the end of 7.4.5?
As part of their own due diligence in terms of the viability consultant, the council's viability consultant now look at the evidence before them as well in terms of the market trends, etc. And they will still do that assessment irrespective of what data has been provided by the actual applicant.
Can I just come back on one point which Councillor Quinn did raise in 7.4.5? I understand there's a deficit in terms of this application, and it is market norm in terms of the profit margin is 17.5%. So that is the allowance they're allowed in terms of making a profit. I understand there's a deficit. There's no affordable being provided as part of the application, but as part of the viability tests and things like that, the norm is 17.5%. As noted in the report, they are saying that it's falling at 15.7%, so that's below what is the acceptable level of the profit. So 17.5 is a market norm in terms of profit margins on these kinds of applications.
Sorry, Chair, to come back to that, but just what our head of housing and planning has just said contradicts the report, which says 7.4.5 says 15.7% which would be within the acceptable profit margins as set out in the guidance. So it says that 15.7% would be within the acceptable profit margin. I don't know whether that's now an error.
So there's a range given between what's acceptable, and it's usually between 15 and 20%. So that's the range that is actually given for that.
Councillor White.
It's on a similar vein. My question before Jonathan asked what he was going to ask was, why is it not viable for affordable housing? We seem to come up against this quite a few times, that we're promised affordable housing. We get all excited that we're going to reach our target with affordable housing, and then all of a sudden it's not viable. I just wonder how many other, I know it's not relevant to this, but how many other times is this going to happen, and how many other times are we going to lose out on the affordable housing that we need for our borough?
I think it's a good question, Councillor White. I think it's fair to say that the market is actually impacted by build costs and also by mortgage rates at the moment, and that's suppressing the market. It's fair to say there are more values within more single larger dwellings rather than flats, and given the location as well, and build costs and mortgage rates and all those factors, it impacts in terms of the level of affordable housing that can be provided on site. So they are the mitigating factors, really, why this application cannot provide any affordable. As part of the application, there are only 10 units being assessed as part of this application, and about 4 units could come forward, but given those other factors, that's impacting the level of affordable, and that's been assessed by a consultant, and they've concluded that 0% affordable housing is the recommendation on this.
So what we're looking at here is just the extra 10 property dwellings. How many in the development as a whole are there?
So under the prior bill there's 30, and then there's another additional 10
So that's
at
40.
At 40, that's correct, yeah.
Councillor Noble.
Thank you, Chair. And firstly, apologies for being late this evening. Are we in danger of setting a precedent in granting this application that people can avoid affordable housing by planning applications by stealth, so 30 units then another 10?
So in terms of the application, they could come in and, just bring forward 30 units because that's the fallback position as part of this application. We're only considering the additional 10 units, and that's come forward as a full planning application. The level threshold for affordable is 10, so they would need to submit a viability assessment. So it doesn't set a precedent. So if an application came in tomorrow, the same process would have to be followed in terms of them submitting a viability assessment that would be independently assessed on behalf of the council and a recommendation made as part of the application. But given they've got a fallback position on those 30 units, that's a material factor in terms of this application and assessment of the application itself.
Does the 30 include affordable housing?
No, because actually
Chair, Chair, you've stolen my thunder. Firstly, I'm glad it's not me that brought up affordable housing for a change, because I feel like a broken record sometimes. You've asked exactly this question I've asked, so I was going to ask, but I'm going to ask it again anyway. So the previous planning application that went through under different times, can you just explain why that wasn't affordable housing as well? Because I seem to sit in this chamber on more than one occasion asking about affordable housing, and every single time we seem to get a different reason, I won't say excuse, different reason why we can't do it. So just on this, I hear what we're saying about the 10, but what about the original bill? Why was that not allowed social housing as well?
So that was granted under the prior approval legislation, so the office to residential conversion, and under that legislation they aren't required to provide affordable housing.
Thank you.
Councillor Quinn.
So just to quickly reiterate my point and then ask a question to officers. So the applicant, when they submitted their viability assessment, officers have agreed that was initially based on the wrong value. They used the alternative use value when the planning guidance says they should use the existing use value. It's also the case, I hope officers would be able to confirm this, that the existing use value, the correct one that they should have used in their viability report, is more likely to show that is minded to defer this application for further discussion. Would it be possible to go to the developer and say, can you resubmit your viability assessment based on the existing use value? So the council's viability consultant can then look at that as a full viability assessment without trying to make a judgment based on the EUV on a report that only uses the wrong measure, the AUV.
The EUV was the starting point under the legislation, and then you have to consider the AUV. Now, our specialists would likelihood in all reality come to the same conclusions, given that the work they've already done, looking at due diligence, which you already referred to. So I suspect we come to exactly the same conclusion.
Anyone else? No? Okay. We have an officer recommendation.
How does recommending to defer work? Does that happen before the vote on the application?
I will take advice on this. My advice is we have to vote on the officer recommendation first. If that doesn't go through, then we can look at deferring. Okay? So, officer recommendation to approve. Do I have a proposer? Deadly silence.
Councillor Parrott's got a hand up, I think. Councillor Parrott got a hand up?
Ying, have you got your hand up? No. Thank you. Well, as we have no proposer for the officer recommendation, Councillor Quinn made a recommendation to defer for further consultation. You're proposing that. Do you have a seconder?
Need any reason to be given for deferring it, or is it just a motion to defer?
Yeah, there'll need to be a reason for the minutes, yeah.
We'll need a reason for the minutes.
Could the reason be that we'd like a viability assessment using the existing use value to be submitted by the applicant instead of the report they submitted using the alternative use value?
In relation to affordable housing?
Yeah.
Valid reason? Good. Seconded by Councillor Garrett. All those in favour of the recommendation to defer? I think that's unanimous, yes? Thank you. Okay, going back almost to the beginning, item 5, Princess Royal Barracks, 240062 RRM. This would be Sarita.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to present 3 deep cut applications to you this evening. Just so that we've got some orientation, we have got Phase 6C, which is this one here, which surrounds the school. That's the first application we will look at. Then we've got the village centre, and then phases 4B and 4C, which are around North Minden House and Camberley Manor here. And then right at the very top of the site, this will be the care home application, which will be the last application we will consider this evening. To my paper. Right, so this relates to 5-6C. This is the second application that's been submitted by Bloor. Members may recall that we have dealt with phase 4F, which is here, and this is also this is phase 6B, which is likely to come to the November meeting. The application that we are looking at tonight is for 6C, and this is for 142 dwellings. So you can see we have got existing access points already approved on and implemented on Bracken Hill. So we have one there, one there, and then we have others up here, around here. There are no access points onto Mindenhurst Road because that is a requirement of the County Highway Authority. And we have a variety of houses. So we have a 2-bedroom house, which you see as example. Then we have 3-bedroom houses. The site has a number of 3-bedroom house types and different material treatments. They all basically fall within the parameters, just maybe about 8.6, 8.8, so something of that ilk, all within acceptable limits. This is an indicative street scene of Mindenhurst Road. So this is, that's the one that's on the corner. This is what will be the pedestrian link through to the formal park and the church, which is behind. And this is down to the junction with Bracken Hill, which is here. And this street scene is at the top of, on the corner of Minden Ridge, so it's right on the top of the site. Now, one of the interesting things about this site and the one that we will look at next is the difference in levels. This is a street scene. This is going up Bracken Hill. So this is the Hungarian oak that's referred to in the committee. These are the 3 houses that actually have the shortfall in the gardens. But the shortfall is not material in planning terms and is acceptable. This is an aerial photograph pre-demolition. If anybody has been down to Deep Cut of late, they will see it's basically flattened. So all of this is basically gone, whether it's the Bloor parcels up here. Carla have basically finished their demolition, and Taylor Wimpey are just about to start theirs if they haven't already. This is the view from Mindenhurst Road looking north and east. So this is Bracken Hill. This is the Chislehurst houses on Mindenhurst Road. This is looking up the hill. So we've got the drainage swale here, and obviously the phase 6A, which members considered in September, is over here. This is right at the top of the site. So you're looking down into the Minden Valley. So these are the buildings that have now gone. You can just see the school in the distance, but it just gives you some sense of how high Minden Ridge is in relation to what is Minden Ridge is higher than Mindenhurst Road and Bracken Hill. So again, this is down at the end. Now I think, if memory serves me right, there is a 13-metre difference from Minden Ridge that we've just looked at down to this corner here. So it's significant. So that's why for both this one and the next application, the actual consideration of the levels is so important, because we are going to have retaining walls, and we'll come to that in just one moment. So this is the Chislehurst. This is the application site here. This is standing on Mindenhurst Road, looking at the school here, and our application site is over around here. So you just get a sense of going up the hill. And this is a view from within the site looking at the school. Of particular note is that this is where the greatest retaining wall is going to be. And that's about 2.8 metres. So it just gives a sense, because the school is down. So that's why we're going to get building platforms going up the hill. And again, this is just looking towards the Chivselhouse houses here. You can see the church in the distance. And again, these are the existing approved and implemented accesses onto Bracken Hill. You may remember that the Loop Road was the subject of a separate application, and consequently the Loop Road got put in first. One of the consequences of that, and you can just see little bits here, is that we have changes of levels when we go into the site that the developers are going to have to deal with, because that's the access they've got and that's what they've got to work with. And that is particularly noticeable. You see this here. What I haven't been able to take such a good picture of is that there is a bit of a drop then. So again, it's a question of them building stuff up, so they've actually got a building platform that they can work from. And again, this is just looking up the hill at the site. So I will go back one. There is an update to the report. We didn't get any representations to the further site notice, press notice, or neighbour notification that we did, just a relation to the change to the site boundary. The parking levels are to standard, so the County Highway Authority are happy. We have got our affordable housing units on this site, which is 26, including 2 4-bedroom houses, which the housing manager is very happy about. We have biodiversity enhancements on the site, and every building will have one, and the drainage is acceptable. The recommendation is to grant subject to conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, Councillor Garrett.
Sorry, that's me. Thank you. So just to confirm, you said all the demolition's been done. Is that right? On this latest bit?
On your one, it's been completely finished, hasn't it? Yes, it's completely finished.
I was going to ask about the school, but because I asked that last time. So that's fine. So that's not. So the other concern is then reference the levels. Is there an element of how are the levels being built up? Are they pile driving and stuff like that? Because obviously that has an effect, and I'm thinking of the schools again with noise, etc.
That is a question that I have been discussing around and about. That kind of information would be caught in the construction environmental management plan, because obviously we cannot have noisy piling going on when you've got tots trying to learn their times table, whatever they do these days. So yes, and again, it's a question of making sure that there's stuff on the boundary that safeguards the playing fields and all of that, to make sure that the school can operate quite happily, irrespective of what's going on around it, because obviously that's important, and we will catch that under the Condition 61 submission.
So that'll be part of a condition then, basically.
We already have a Condition 61 submission in, and that's part of the discussions that will be ongoing with the applicant. But they are here this evening, so they will hear that, so they know it's coming.
Councillor Parrott.
Yes, just to follow up on Councillor Garrett's question is about safety issue since it's a primary school, are these taken into consideration as safety issues for the kids in the school? Thank you.
I think it's true to say that we will ensure that all adjoining occupiers, including the residents on Mindenhurst Road as well, because obviously they're affected by the development, we will ensure everything that was in the terms of the condition to safeguard their amenity in terms of noise and everything else will be dealt with. Notwithstanding the requirements of this condition, it does not mean that the applicant is not subject to other legislation. Say, for example, there's the Environmental Protection Act, there's Health and Safety at Work Act, all of that legislation still applies. Planning does not override that. So basically it's not just one, and I'm quite sure, I mean, as I understand it, if the head teacher has any issues, the applicants have already made contact. So they are aware of the requirements that the school has.
Thank you. Anyone else? Got any questions? Councillor Garrett again, then Councillor Whitcroft.
So just one reference. This is by the same developer that we had on the last one in September, which was a different plot, as you said. No, it's not. Okay, fine. So that
One in August.
one in August. Sorry, they all mould into one, don't they? So the question is reference traffic. If it's the same contractor, I'm guessing it won't be an increasing building traffic, etc., because it's the same contractor. Yes.
The traffic movements associated with the Bloor parcels, which are 4F, 6B and 6C, Taylor Wimpey, which is 6A, and Carla, which is 6D, they all use the loop road. So when they are all subject to a condition 61, which deals with the traffic management, and I know that my county highway authorities have already made various comments on how they wish things to be done. None of those construction management plans have been approved yet, so we are still in a state of discussion and working out what is best for the operational requirements of the developers, because ideally we want them in building and out as quickly as possible. But on the other hand, we don't want to be on the receiving end of they've done this wrong, they've done that wrong, they're going the wrong way around this, they've just ruined all the new improvements on Deep Clippard Road. All of that thing we've got a handle on, so hopefully it will work.
Councillor Whitcroft.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to make an observation rather than a question, and it is that, excuse me, the local members, including your good self, Chair, have been involved with this for some 12 years or whatever now. So these issues about safety and so forth are something which, is, as you might imagine, are very close to our hearts. For example, as we've heard, there has been a huge amount of demolition taking place on this site, which creates all sorts of difficulties, not least with dust and so forth. And the amount of detail which has been gone into dealing with these matters is very close indeed. So far, as a local member, and I shouldn't say this, obviously, the number of complaints we've had from residents, and there are quite a few residents now, there's some 400 homes, I think, now occupied on Mindenhurst. The amount of complaints have been very limited, at least about this kind of issue. There's been plenty of complaints about green swards and other things, but we won't go into that now. So I'd just like to assure the committee that that officers are well on top of this, and it has been managed in a very effective way. You may recall, for example, the amount of time and effort that was gone into to protect the school from the pupils from the machinations of the one-way systems and so forth, which took place within Deep Cut. And once again, that seemed to work as effectively as it could. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you. I totally agree. Due to the hard work of Sarita and her team. Anybody else got any questions? No? We have a recommendation to approve with conditions. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Whitcroft. Seconded, Councillor Noble. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Unanimous. That was unanimous. Thank you very much. Sarita, you draw breath.
This relates to phases 3B, no, 4, let's get my numbers right, 3B, 4E and 4C. So let's have a look, what have we got? Now, this one is unusual for Deep Cut in that it's a mixed development. So this was originally envisaged, well, it does include the village centre, and 123 dwellings. Now, the village centre was originally meant to be the library, a medical facility and local shops. As you will see from your agenda papers, Surrey County Council didn't want the library, so the contribution has been paid on that. And the health body has also received, the health contribution has been made in lieu of provision. So this meant that the village centre has moved north based on the phasing plan. So it has a better relationship for those shops to Deepcut Village. So that it connects better to the car park on Wood End Road. It relates better to the buildings on the other side of the road. So what we have is, this is the mixed-use building here. And then we have apartments here, 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 here. And then we have a combination of 2, 3, 4 and 5 bedroom dwellings across the site. Just so we have the supermarket site up here. We have Camberley Manor Nursing Home here. We have North Minden House here. Both of these buildings are slightly higher than the site, so they come down, because obviously there, again, with this one, we also have a huge difference in level. So this northern boundary up here is about 11 metres higher than the one down here by the Fulmore Park. And the Deepcut Bridge Road boundary is about 10 metres higher than the boundary down here with Mindenhouse Road. So we have got some interesting levels that we have to deal with to create the relevant building platforms. And these are examples of the coach houses. So these are the little units above the carports. And then we have our 2-bedroom houses, and we have a number of 3-bedroom houses, and then we have 5-bedroom, and then we have the apartments. Again, you'll remember from dealing with the previous application that the general height of the flat buildings is about 9.6 now, which will be, and again, this is just very similar to the buildings that were approved previously on Phase 6A. This is the different one. This is the mixed-use building. So we have got shops fronting Deepcut Bridge Road, and then we have a return for this unit, and then we have a little shop unit there. The terms of the original permission talked about a floor space of 180 square metres gross. The units themselves are 60 square metres, so it would be higher than the gross figure that was set out in the hybrid. But given what has happened with the supermarket, that minor increase is going to have no retail impact on the village, and and it provides 3 appropriately sized units for the centre. And again, we've got flats above. I have put in this one because I just wanted to show members the kind of issues that we're having with the levels. So this is the Deepcut Bridge Road frontage. So this is our little mixed-use building, and this is going to be our little piazza out here, and this continues up towards North Minden House. But just to give a sense, that this is the car parking for the flats and the kind of retaining wall that we need. And again, we've got the ramp up here, because obviously we need to make sure we provide appropriate disabled access, and also for anybody that has mobility issues, they can go up safely. So it's just giving a sense of the kind of things. Now, one of the issues that we raised with this one was there was a big underbuild, because obviously floors within the shops have got to be level. And the way that that's been addressed is by putting a little mound with trees on. So that's better to have a kind of landscape solution to that kind of thing, rather than just have a higher wall, really. These are various street scenes within the site. So we've got Deepcut Bridge Road, we've got down to the Fulmore Park. So it's just a variety. You can see from the street scenes, we have a variety of heights, we have a variety of buildings, and it all goes to contribute to an interesting street scene with all different finishes as well. And again, you just go this is more within the site and heading up towards the northern bit and within the middle of the site as well. So again, it just gives you a sense of we've got different roof heights, we've got different material finishes, different spacing. It all contributes to the quality of the street scene that's coming forward. And this is the CGI from what would be from the southern access on Mindenhurst Road. So we've got the tree buffer here, and these are the houses. And that if you follow that road all the way up to the hill, that takes you up to Deep Cupboard Road, where the mixed-use buildings are. And this is the other end. So this is the mixed-use building. We have an area just outside of the shops here. So if you were a coffee shop, there would be space for tables and chairs, for example. And this is the little public piazza space here. There will be more trees there, by the way. But that will be part of their landscaping condition when it comes in subsequently. And this is looking from the northern access on Mindenhurst Road. So this is the lap. So if you continue over here, you will have the curve on Mindenhurst Road and you have the supermarket the other side. So Camberley Manor is over here somewhere and North Minden House is over here somewhere. This is an aerial photo provided by the applicant just to give a sense of where everything is. So again, Camberley Manor, North Minden House, Deep Cupboard Road. I mean, Deep Cupboard Road has a very mixed character itself. So the combination of mixed-use residential is not uncommon in this part of Deep Cut. And then we have various views. So this is looking north up Deep Cupboard Road. As you will see, we've had to put the barriers around the earth area before the trees are planted because everyone seems to be parking on it. Again, you can just see, even from the Deep Cupboard Road improvements, that the land goes up. So again, that's got to be flattened out so that you get level access into the shops and to the housing. And this again is at the top, so it just gives you a sense. I mean, that's the top of Minden Ridge that we were looking at just now. I mean, it's huge, the difference in levels. This is looking towards North Minden House. So those trees there are within North Minden House. And obviously, they're being retained. This is looking down. So this is existing development. This is North Minden House. And then we've come round the corner. So the supermarket site is over here. This is Camberley Manor. Again, you can see how the site is coming down the slope. The majority of trees here are being retained because obviously we have the lap in this area here as well. And this is just looking back. So this is on Mindenhurst Road by the junction with Brackenhill looking up. And so it's just various views. As you can just see it coming down the slope. And then looking back up. So this is looking across from Brackenhill up the hill. So you can just see the kind of level changes that we're dealing with. So this is the bottom, and this is Deep Cupboard Road up here. And again, this is the formal park over here. So again, we have level changes, and this is looking back. So the formal park, as you can see, is almost complete. It's still got a few more bits and pieces. There will be a pedestrian link from here, from this phase into the park as well. So again, it's important that we have good pedestrian links, we have good cycle links, we have good permeability through the site to all the various bits and pieces that people need to get to. Right, we have got affordable housing on this one as well. And the requirement on this phase is for 20 dwellings and 20 are being provided, 10 affordable rent and 10 shared ownership. And again, we've also got 4-bedroom houses for this as well. We have got biodiversity enhancements on this one. There are, with regard to drainage that we were talking about before on the other one, that is still to be submitted for this phase, so that will be part and parcel of a further submission. You will see from the update sheet that we are proposing an additional condition, and it is just relating to the eating food on the premises, which is the EB use, and the takeaway. It's just to make sure that we have details of the potential ventilation, because whilst on the hybrid there is a condition that controls noise, we actually don't have a condition that actually tells you what it looks like, how big it's going to be, or anything like that. It gives us no control. So that condition then brings us back that control. You will see from the agenda papers that we've also updated the use condition, because when the hybrid was written, the uses that were quoted there have now been revoked. So we have updated it so it is reflects the current position with the use classes order. Subject to that amended condition, the recommendation is to grant subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members? Any questions for Sarita? Councillor Garrett.
Thank you. I could have missed it, so I apologise if I did. The shops, there's no specific shops. I mean, it says in the update about takeaways, etc. You did mention maybe a cafe or something. Do we take in, I'm pretty sure this is not a planning condition, but obviously there is already a cafe within the area. Is that something we would take into consideration on a condition? And I'm guessing these are shells, so they wouldn't necessarily be specifically for a takeaway, for instance, and obviously the things that come with that.
Yeah. When the hybrid was granted, it was accepted that those uses would be acceptable. So we could have a combination. I mean, there is a limit on the amount that the takeaway can be. It can only be one of a unit or subdividing it. There's a maximum floor space. I mean, interestingly, one of the consequences of having a commercial use is it needs a higher floor-to-ceiling height, which I don't think was quite taken into account with the parameter plans. But no, in terms of the use, the hybrid established the uses that would be acceptable. We have updated that because obviously the takeaway now has become a use by itself. But now it reflects what the use classes are, having regard to the hybrid permission.
Councillor Whitcroft.
Thank you, Chair. Very, very briefly, I'd just like to make the point, excuse me, that of all the parcels of land and the packages of development which have come forward on Mindenhurst, I think this has probably, as far as the local residents are concerned, been the most challenging, because it has had, or it will have, and already has had, a huge impact on the existing environment within Deep Cut. This particular application has resulted in the removal, certainly of hundreds of trees, if not thousands, but certainly a lot of trees. Those of you who have driven down the Deep Cut Bridge Road will recall the bank of trees on the right-hand side as you move towards Camberley, which have now completely gone. And what you have instead at the moment is a view across a fairly barren valley, which is soon to be replaced by this built form. There has been, it's fair to say, I think, a certain amount of reluctance about this, because it has involved a huge degree of change, which the local residents have accepted, and I think it's to their credit that they have, in fact, without making a huge fuss about it. But nevertheless, it's one of these situations where, as a local member, one has to, I think, bite the bullet and accept that hopefully the ultimate development benefits will outweigh the huge disadvantages which have taken place so far. That puts a considerable responsibility on the developer, and it is to be hoped that the developer, obviously overseen by our planners and enforcement people, etc., will rise to that challenge, because this is, as I say, of all the applications, this is one of the most crucial of the lot. Having said that, I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
I'd just like to be fair to the applicant. They didn't remove the trees. Skanska and DIO removed the trees.
Sorry, Chair, I'd just make the point that the trees ain't there anymore. Thank you.
Any other questions or statements? Councillor Wheeler.
It is really more of a statement. Just thank you again, Sarita, for the detail within this and the amount of hard work and negotiation, no doubt, that has gone on in the background. And thank heavens these developments are finally coming forward. I did worry that I'd never see it built, so fantastic.
Thank you. Everybody happy? Yeah? Okay, we have a recommendation. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Glauert, seconder Councillor White. Unanimous. Thank you, members. And who's next? Oh, Sarita.
Sorry, you'll get bored of hearing me this evening. This is the last one, and this is at the northern end of the site. It's what I call the Northern Gateway. And I think it is a very important site because it's the first thing you see when you come in from Somme Road. So basically, this is the site. So Somme Road is here. You have Menorca Road, Menorca Avenue, which are the Annington homes, which are currently in the process of being unboarded up. And actually work has started on refurbishment. The proposal before you this evening is for a, I always get my numbers muddled up, 90-bed care home. So it's 70 beds and 20 care suites. Now, we've got the existing approved access again, like with a lot of the other roads in the development, they have been implemented and approved under different applications. So this was done under the angst and the allotments. So the 2 access points are already in there. So we have this building, as you will see from the papers, it is slightly different from what was envisaged under the hybrid. But I think in terms of what is being proposed, it is design excellence. And I think it will be an absolute attribute to this part of the site. See? So basically, we have a central core here, and that provides things like offices, restaurant, that kind of thing. We have the care suites here and here. No, here and here, I should say. I've got my floor plans. And then I've got care rooms here, 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 and here. This really doesn't help particularly in terms of what's being proposed. I think the CGIs will probably help more. So we have a central part, and then we have the wings coming off the central part. I think I'll probably go to, there we go, that's better. So that is the main entrance. And I think members may have seen this in some documents that has been submitted by the applicant. Again, this is looking from the deep cut angst. You will see from within the site there are numerous garden areas for residents. We have a woodland garden, we have this boardwalk area garden, we have the main garden area that includes a kitchen garden as well. And there are little courtyards and there's balconies as well for residents. This is the view from the southern access on Somme Road, so this is what you would see as you're coming in. And this is from the northern access, so this is from where the staff parking would be, and those were the buildings that you would see. This was the site before the demolition. I mean, the demolition took place at least 2-3 years ago now, so this is long gone. This area here has, well, you'll see shortly, has also been changed. So this is the site in here. The building footprint had been changed to actually keep more trees. The indicative plan that was on the hybrid involved the loss of more trees than we've actually currently got. So things have improved in that respect. This is an old military substation that's been replaced by one that's over here, but it hasn't been demolished yet. This is looking at Somme Road. So the access is, the northern access is just here. This is Menorca Road. And you can just see the access which is there. So that will be the access into the staff car parking area. This is looking back, so the access is there, going towards Menorca Avenue here. And again, this just gives another view into the site. A view from Somme Road, so we're now looking towards the south, so towards the sports hub and the allotments. And again, looking south. Looking into the site, so we're now looking west. And that is also looking west. The reason I put this one in is the applicant discussed having a potential third access point in terms of, say, for example, ambulances to be separate from the visitors. The Highway Authority and the council had no objection to that. but Skanska wouldn't allow them to apply for it. So that is why there is a condition. So if the applicant chooses to follow that, that's fine. If he doesn't, the layout works as it stands. So it just gives flexibility to what the applicant wishes to do. Oh, I think I'll go back on then. You will see from the papers that because the site is within 400 metres of the SPA, the use of the building is restricted to C2, and the occupation is also controlled by who can live in there. So it's frail, it's mentally infirm, it's dementia, and the application reflects that. So it is fully compliant with the terms of the Section 106. We have 30 parking spaces in total, 19 for visitors, including 2 disabled spaces, and 11 staff. The County Highway Authority are satisfied with that level of provision, which has been fully justified by the applicant in their transport information. The recommendation is to grant subject to conditions now, and there is no update on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Sarita? Councillor Wheeler, then Councillor Garrett.
Somewhat abstract question. How long do they have to keep the gardens for? So if they wanted to amend that, does it have to come back to planning? Are they there for forever?
The
gardens.
The gardens. The gardens are part of the landscape setting of the building. A number of residents have their own private amenity space, so I do not envisage any change to the garden space because it's part and parcel of the setting of their building. But if they did change it, yes, they would have to come back to us. If they wanted to do something else, like, I can't even think what they could do with it, but I would be very surprised if they would want to change it.
Thank you, Chair. 2 things. Because it's within 400 metres of buffer zone, there's this particular person that can use this. Who polices that, for want of another word? And second question, there's a lot of trees there already, and there's a lot of artistic licence within the pictures we've seen. How long will it be before the site looks like what the artist's impression says? Because it's lovely putting all these really mature trees in there, but they don't always grow that quickly. So, I mean, I know that's not a planning condition, but it looks very nice, but how long will it be before it actually looks like that?
Well, in terms of these trees, most of those are existing. So that was one of the reasons that the building got slightly tweaked, so that they could actually retain more trees. And again, here, they've retained the trees up here. This is one of, I think that's the grade A oak, if memory serves me right. So as far as is possible, they are looking to retain trees on the site. So that has been something that's been quite refreshing to come from a developer, actually, to hear that was one of their motivations, because obviously they're creating a lifestyle for a group of people. So they want it to look as nice as quickly as possible. But in terms of when it will actually look like that, in terms of the pictures, I don't know.
There's a lot of trees.
Yeah, and you also have the fact that basically the north setting and angst here also acts as a visual buffer as well. And who's going to police it? Yeah. Us.
Thank you. Councillor Whitcroft.
Thank you, Chair. First thing I ought to do, I think, is just make it clear that the applicant for this site has been involved with not only with the planners for some years now. I think it's true to say, probably a couple of years, but also with local members, including myself. And residents in terms of discussing the proposals and their intentions with this site. And they had quite a difficult time in one sense, because quite near this site was the original officers' mess, which was a very popular building locally. and which is no longer completely demolished. However, it's to be hoped that this building will become something that the local community can take a certain amount of pride in. Because I think, as Councillor Garrett has already alluded to, the question of trees, it would have been the easiest thing in the world for a developer to come along and propose the blitzing of the whole site and building a huge block containing far more accommodation than this one. And what we have instead, I think, is a facility which actually takes full advantage of its location. It's set in what I believe is referred to as a sylvan site. Is that right? Very good. And as such, it is going to provide the residents of the care home with a huge amount of tranquility, I think it's true to say, and peace, which, as far as people are concerned, and I can speak from experience, who are approaching the end of our days. Thank you. I don't have a room reserved, I hasten to add. But it is actually going to provide an ideal place for people to end their days, as it were, and in peace and tranquility. And I think it's going to be, as I say, something which Deep Cut can take some pride in. Earlier, I moaned about things being knocked down and changed and made different and so on and so forth. But I think in this particular instance, there is every possibility that this will see a very positive outcome to some of the development that's taken place in Mindenhurst. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Not to be negative after that positivity. Parking. I just wondered how far he's sort of set it up that it's in a tranquil setting and everything, but how far away is it, or will it be, from the residential area? Because we all know that the care homes in the town centres or in the villages or anything cause absolute chaos with parking. And I just wondered whether there would be an overspill to anywhere that would be inconvenienced.
That was looked at in great detail, given the number of parking spaces that have been proposed. The Highway Authority scrutinised the figures and the data provided by the applicant, who run a number of these facilities in the southeast, including one in Bagshot. So we have a bus stop just up here, so there are good public transport links here, which should also feed into the bus that's being provided as part of the Deep Cut permission anyway. We have got obviously the main cycle link for Deep Cut starts up here. So there are sustainable transport choices available. The site is subject to a travel plan, so there are various measures in the travel plan that will address if there is an issue with parking. Notwithstanding that, we do actually have the Sports Hub car park over here as well. From the information that's been provided by the applicant, I'm not sure that parking overspill will be an issue. But again, the travel plan has got provisions in it to deal with any potential issue that comes like that. And again, that's monitored by both us and by the County Highway Authority as well.
Thank you. Any more questions? No? We have an officer recommendation for approval. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Garrett. And a seconder? Councillor Whitcroft. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Unanimous. We are unanimous in this. Thank you very much. That concludes this evening's business. Enjoy the rest of your evening.